Right, so before we start, I just want to get some rough ideas on who actually I'm speaking to, right? So why do you guys here? Anybody want to answer this question? Like, why you come, spend 2 hours over Saturday to this place listening to me talking, probably not that useful. Or anybody? Like you, why are you here? To learn. Just to learn. Any specific reason why you want to learn? Or specific things that you want to learn? Okay. Anybody want anything specific? Maybe we can tell you the talk to, give you what you want. Okay, still too early to answer a question? Really? Okay, it's fine. Because, so my name is Arzumy. This is a picture of me back then when I was a bit smaller or younger. And I love to use this picture all the time because it's going to remind me of like how sloppy I am back then. And I'm still sloppy a bit here today, just like less hair. If you have a question, if you're afraid to ask it here, you can just tweet me at Arzumy, and I'll make sure my phone is ready. And so if I'm checking my phone, essentially I'm checking for the question, not really, WhatsApping or Telegramming. Right. So yeah, I jumped the slide a bit because I want you to come here actually after 2 hours, right? After 2 hours listening to me rambling around in front, I want you to actually at least bring back something and actually learn something, right? Because I have my slide, yeah, but maybe it's not really what you're looking for, right? So as much as possible, I want you to actually participate in this. If you have any question, just ask it straight on. If anything sounds confusing or you have different ideas about it, just raise your hand or just say, hey, Zumi, that's wrong. Okay, I expect more from you, Keegan, because I know you. Anyone else? Right? And also to learn a bit more about you guys, I have a few questions that need answering here. Like, so who actually here first time they want to launch their own product? Right. You want to launch your product? Have you started? A little bit, right? Anybody with ideas that they want to launch? Okay, good. You got ideas, right? Because hopefully you come here with some sort of ideas that you want to launch. So after this talk, then you can immediately just execute it, what things that you're going to do, right? Who actually have launched a product here? All right, cool. 1, 2. So you don't need to be here. All right, that's it, right? So the rest, you're just trying to figure things out and see, how you can actually do this. All right, cool. All right, second question. So are you guys here to launch a hardware product or a software product? Software? Anybody doing hardware? Like, hardware, cool, I like you. You also doing hardware? Okay, good. So a combination of both, so not just like a knife, for example. No, right? So it's a combination of both. Anyone else? What about you guys? You launch your product, right? A bit of both. Okay, cool. Software. Okay, cool. Well, the reason I asked is because previously when I gave this talk, like half of the room actually doing hardware, and I didn't even bother to talk about how to launch a hardware product. And then they got a bit pissed off at me because I'm not talking about hardware. So now I just want to make sure that we have a mix of both, and then we can address both of them. And what do you guys feel this talk should be? Is it kind of like workshop? Do you want to like work together with me or do something and give you something to do and you're going to do it? Or you just want to listen to me talking, which I can do that for 2 hours. I love listening to my own voice too sometimes. Right, who wants workshop? Like you want to do something. Okay, you want to do something. Good. Anyone else? Not really? Okay. A little bit of both. Okay, I think we can do a little bit of both, right? Maybe we can do it together, right? Maybe we can do it together because we have a whiteboard there. So we can do some sort of sample here and then we can just start doing things together, right? Anybody here familiar with Agile development? Never heard of Agile? Obviously. Okay, not so much. All right. All right, so we already talked about that. So after leaving the workshop, this is the key takeaways that I hope you would learn from this workshop. There's a 3. First, you would have a clear visions of your product, and meaning that sometimes people will just come and then have ideas, right? I feel like, hey, these random ideas like pass you through, and then you want to grab it, and then you feel like this is like the greatest ideas ever, but you actually don't know what it is, right? You just feel like, hey, I think this, we can do something with this, right? I think we can do something with, I know, the location here in Cyberjaya. I can do something in software to actually help people here. But you don't really know what it is. Sometimes you just feel it's really great ideas, but you don't really actually have a clear vision of what it is, right? So after this workshop or this talk, then I hope that you will be able to break down your ideas to a clear vision of what it should be and what it shouldn't be, right? So then when you actually start developing it, you won't stray away from what it's supposed to be. And sometimes after you're doing this exercise, then you feel like, my ideas is really shitty, maybe I shouldn't work on it, right? Because there's a lot of time you come with ideas, it feels really great, and then you talk to some people and then you try to understand what it is. It's actually just a shitty idea, or maybe the time is not right yet, right? Or maybe someone else already built better and there's no reason for you to compete, right? If you want to compete, it's fine, but sometimes I'm happy that other people are actually building this idea because I can focus on building different things, right? Things that people haven't built yet, right? It's so easy to come up with ideas and so easy to stray from that ideas and thinking it might be a great thing if you don't have a clear vision of it. And we also want to list down all actionable items from the ideas. So once you understand what you're going to do with it, then we're going to break it down even more so you know what's the next thing you're supposed to do, right? Either you could actually start building it or actually hire people to actually build it, or whatever you feel that you need to do after you have clarified what your vision is, right? And then from this set of items, we're going to come up with a clear product roadmap on how things actually supposed to be worked on and when actually you can launch this product, right? So it's actually a very clear step of how doing things. So back in our company, this is what we do. Every time we want to launch new ideas, I'll guide you through the whole process. But every time, even though we already launched product for the past 4 years, this is still the same things that we're doing, right? And some different companies are doing it differently, but pretty much it's this, right? Try to break it down your ideas, get a clear visions, and really understand what's going on. So everybody's working with a team knows what's going on. Even if you hire freelancers or outside company, outsource it to another company, they actually understand what's going on, and everybody's have a clarity on what the product should be, right? Because normally what you would see, especially if you are new in launching a product, right, you would have ideas, right? And then you would go out and try to ask some friend, hey, you know coding or you know programming, can you help me out, right? Or sometimes you actually, okay, I have some money, I want to go and outsource it to outsourcing companies, right? And this always happens. If you are in a freelancing community, you always hear the freelancers bitching about their client, right? See, the client is stupid, the client they don't understand this thing, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? But what it is actually is just a miscommunication between the client and the developer, right? Because you don't have a clarity on what the product should be, what your expectation is, what your goal. Because I've been in the both sides, right? I've been in the freelancers world for the longest time, and we also hire a bunch of freelancers to work with us. And it's always like that, right? Every time you work with the new freelancers, it's always about how can you set the expectation right? How can you have a clarity on the product so whenever we start building something, you don't have issues like, shit, my client is this and whatnot. And you as a product owner start to feel, this freelancer, this always disappear, they are flakies and whatnot. But most of the time, they just don't understand what's going on. And sometimes when you give for them something to build, they come up with things that are completely different than what you expected because they feel it's better that way, and then you got really pissed off about it, right? So this thing happens all the time. I mean, it's not even funny anymore. Like, it's funny when you talk about it sometimes, but really not funny. So we want to have something like this, a clear thing so it's thing to do, and a clear vision so everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows that when you are doing too much or when you stray from the actual product goals, all right? Okay, that's a bit fast. All right, I want to walk through a bit of agile values. Agile just means being agile, meaning you can change things all the time. You expect change, right? That's kind of like the gist of it, right? And some people from the different project management style would say agile is just an excuse of not planning. Because some people love to plan, but agile people just plan a bit and we wing it most of the time, right? Although that's not entirely true. Right, so there are actually 4 core slides here that talk about agile value, and it's kind of it's useful to understand this. Maybe doing full-on agile is not things that you want to do. If you want to launch a rocket to the moon, for example, maybe you don't want to be too agile about it, right? Because once the rocket's out there, it's really hard to change things, right? But most of the things probably you're going to do in this realm of Earth is actually things that you can change most of the time. And I prefer to do it the agile way, right? Not any specific methodology, but in general, you understand all this agile value when you work on it, right? So we value individuals and interaction over processes and tools. What it means is actually mostly what my understanding of this is, communication is the key, right? So it's not just always follow this process, always use this type of tool. But when you talk with the people who are going to build this stuff, right, either the hardware hackers, the makers, or the software developers, right? It's not necessarily you need to do specifically follow certain processes or using specific tools. It's really about everybody's working together to achieve the goals, right? Everybody's working together to actually deliver this product, right? So there's a lot of communications going on whenever you launch a product. If you're not willing to communicate when you launch a product, then things will definitely go very wrong, right? Some people, they would just go out there and say, hey, this is the idea. I'm going to give you some money, and this is what I expect it to be. And then that's it, right? Never talk again after a month, and then realize that this guy actually built something completely different than what you want, right? And this happens all the time, because some people feel like, okay, once I give you the mock-up of exactly what you're going to do, and then that's it. You just follow this, and then it will work, right? But in reality, that's not how it is, right? When you start building things, you start to see that certain things doesn't even make sense, right? Let's say you have a mock-up of a page of your software or apps, right? And then you realize when somebody's building it, they realize that certain features there, certain buttons actually doing nothing, or the flow doesn't make sense, and they will sometimes just change it because they feel, okay, this is a better way, right? And if this is not communicated properly, then this is what you have, a completely different software or program from what you actually expected, right? So this is one of the value that we cherish the most, a lot of interaction, a lot of communication within the team, right, throughout the team. I think that's kind of like no-brainer, right? And we focus on working software over comprehensive documentation, right? Documentation is good up to a certain point, but ideally, you build software that's easy to understand, easy to use, and not actually need to be explained in a detailed documentation, right? And especially when you're just going to launch a product, I think the last thing you want to care about documentation. So you just want to go to MVP, minimal viable product, as soon as possible, right? So you want a working software that people can actually use and test, so then you can actually validate your ideas, right? So this talk's not so much about validating your ideas, it's really about you having ideas and just going to launch it and see what happens, right? There's going to be another talk in the afternoon about validating your ideas. So if you get registered for that, then you can validate your idea there first before you start building. But this is more on if you really want to validate your ideas, you just launch it and then see what happens, right? And sometimes it's just like that, right? You could assume a bunch of things, but until you launch it, until people actually start using it, there's no way of you knowing, right? You could just assume that this is a great product, but once you launch it, then only you really know what's going to happen, right? So we prefer launching product in multiple stages, like not when everything is ready, just a minimum things are ready, right? So what we call a half product, but not a half-ass product, right? You don't put a product out there that's a lot of things not working. You put a product there with little things that are working and nothing else, right? So there's a big difference there, right? It's not a half-ass things that just throw it out there and see what happens. It's more like I'm gonna make sure that these 3 features work, and the rest we just like hide it first, like people not supposed to see, or we're not going to build it yet, right? Back then in 1998, when the early stage of the internet, when you go to a website, okay, some people like nodding a bit because they can when you go to a website, there's a bunch of links that actually when you click, it goes to under construction, right? This is not a things that people do anymore, but back then when people started working on a website, this is what they do, right? There's a bunch of link about us or whatever it is. When you click, then you see under construction. I don't know why people did that, but this was a habit back then, right? If you know what I mean, then you're old enough. If you don't know what it is, then try to Google it up. All right. This is almost the same as the first one, right? Customer collaboration. Sorry, it's always about everybody building the product together, right? It's not so much about here it is, exactly things. It's the same thing again, right? You do this and then you just build it, right? It's really about collaboration, right? The things that you set out to build could be completely different than what it is, right? You always have to understand this, right? You could think of something that really, really perfect in your mind, but when you start building it, it's not perfect anymore, right? Then you realize there's a lot of flaws to it, right? And then things really need to change. So the product owner, which is in this case the customer most time, will work closely with the developers or the makers, people are actually going to build this, right? And this is a non-negotiable, right? If there's no collaboration, it's really hard, right? If you are really, really awesomely good and really understand what's going on, then probably, yeah, you could just like hire some really good developer and ask them to build exactly as what it is. But in order to do that, you really need to understand how product works. You really need to have a massive experience on how to launch a product, right? But chances are, if this is like, if you guys are telling me the truth and you haven't launched a product, then chances are you probably haven't, you have lack of experience in how launching a product works. And working closely with them is actually something that really useful. So less about the contract. Contract would be like maybe if you work with freelancers, maybe they could charge you hourly rates, or maybe they catch you, okay, this is a retainer on a monthly basis, and then you start working, right? So it's not so much of, you don't have a deadline and feature at the same time, right? You probably would have, I want these 5 features, but the deadline probably negotiable, or I want to launch at this deadline, but the features are negotiable, right? So there's no such thing, I want 5 deadlines and 5 features at this deadline, right? That's probably really hard to do, because you could just guess things, you could estimate, but when you really work on it, this is normally not what's not going to happen, right? So it's really about, you need to understand that if you really want these 5 features, you need to be negotiable on the deadline and really talk things through with the developers, right? And, or if you want a specific deadline, then you just, okay, I'm fine with losing these 3 features and we just launch with 2 features, right? So collaboration is really important, and things probably would change. After a week or 2, then you realize, hey, actually we can do all 5 features within this deadline, then that's good, right? But if not, then be ready for this. All right, this is also another thing. I think throughout this explanation, it always goes back to the same thing. It's all about change over following a plan. This is why some people hate it, because they say it's just an excuse of not planning, right? But yeah, you actually plan stuff. You can choose a deadline, or you can choose a features that actually want to launch, but you actually allow change to happen. You allow new features to come in, or you allow the deadline to be moved forward or backwards, whatever it is, right? All right. So that's what it is, agile values, excuse for not planning. And any questions so far? Anybody worked with agile methodologies, agile scrums, or whatever it is before? No, not ready yet. Okay, that's fine. All right. We are actually fast. We could finish this early. All right, we ready to get started? So we're just going to do all this thing now, and probably best if we do it together. If you have your own ideas, probably you want to do this on your own. If you have your papers, you can start writing down, and then you can ask questions and try to validate if this is actually something that makes sense. For the rest of you, if not too clear what you're going to do, then I think we can do it together. There, I can write things down there, and then we'll see how we can work it out, right? All right. So I already picked 2 ideas. One is something that I call Boleh Bayar, and it's a mobile app to pay bills anytime, right? And another thing is disappearing act. It's office furniture that can disappear at will. So you have your software and you have your hardware. So this is not a real thing yet, So we're trying to figure out if we can actually build this thing, right? So that's a brief explanation of what the product could be, right? When you actually start, when you build it, when you talk to people, you probably could start with have a high-level product concept before you actually start working on this, right? High-level product concept could be, right? So it's high-level product design and experience, right? If it's hardware, probably just a bit of sketch on how it's going to be, or if it's something that's a bit complicated on the back end, probably you want to draw some flow of how things would work, and maybe a design of UX of screens, for example, just a rough mock-up. So when you talk to people, they actually understand what it is, right? So let's look at our two things. So I just quickly drew this. Got a bad handwriting. So Boleh Bayar, what I imagine what it could be is it's a mobile app, right? And this is thing that probably I want to build in one of my company, but I'm just sharing it out there. If you want to build it, go ahead. So what it is I want to be able for people to pay bills easily online from your paper bills, right? Let's say you got your paper bill or you got summons paper, right? So probably what I imagine it to be is if I got this compound or summons on my car, so I would take it, I would open my phone, Boleh Bayar app, and then I start snapping picture of the summons, right? And because it's hard and I don't know how people would use this, I would allow you to take multiple pictures of the summons, right? So this is, I would imagine, similar to WhatsApp. When you want to like attach images, then you can upload, like you can keep adding more stuff, right? So you can edit multiple. If it's too long, you can edit from top to bottom. So that's how I imagine the experience would be. And once you submit it, after some magic processing happening, then you will see the bill and how much it's supposed to pay, and you can pay it, right? Somehow that should work, right? So this is how I feel. This is how I would explain it to the developer, right? And how we're gonna do this, like I don't know yet, but this is what I want, pretty much, like high level. And for disappearing act, I want a office furniture that's light enough that actually I can just stack it, and there's something that I can hold, probably like a bag, and I can bring it anywhere and open it up, right? I'm bad at this sort of design, so I imagine it would look something like that, like a normal table that you can actually have a standing desk, or if you want to sit down, right? Mostly probably standing desk, right? So I can bring it around, can open it, or if in my office there's a bunch of them, when I want to run an event, I could just close up everything, stack it somewhere. It's like so easy. Anybody, even if you're not strong enough, you can actually do it because it's so lightweight. So this is probably what I want from these two apps. Anybody have a question about this app? Because we need to start building it, right? So imagine that I'm actually the product owner and you guys are the developers, right? So I already briefed you these two apps. Anybody have a question about the app?
You can follow AXS, which is a Singapore app, which is they can pay bills online.
Okay.
AXS is a company in Singapore that already established for years, even before the mobile apps come out. They got a terminal where consumer can pay credit card bills, can pay bills, can pay government outlets where they have a link over there.
Right.
Now they have app versions where the consumer can actually pay via apps itself with payment gateways.
Okay, so they can actually take picture of bills, or?
No, it's all by barcode because all the bills come with barcode.
Okay.
So you just need to scan your barcode.
Okay, right. So from what I imagine the app would be is when we launch it, we're probably not going to integrate with any of the billers, right? So which means that you can give me any bills, like I don't even care, like I don't even talk to the bill owner, right? But I can somehow convert it, right? So I would imagine that we're going to use a service called JomPay, which launched by MyClear recently, that allows you to pay bills from any banks, right? So I don't want to work with a bank, so I don't need to know your barcode because that's going to be like more works to me. I'm just going to launch this and make it very generic, right? So that's the way I look at it, right?
You still need to link your bill numbers with the payment side.
Yeah, so that's how JomPay works. So JomPay would have these numbers and would have these things that you can just key in, right? So on the back end, probably I would imagine there's interns or like mechanical Turks that will actually look at these numbers and key in this bill on a console, which is a JomPay console within my MaGIC account. Maybe, right? Seems like that could work, right? So very low level tag, I can launch this quickly. I don't need to actually spend time to work with the billers. I actually just make sure if the bill is there and JomPay actually support it, then I can create the bill. If it doesn't exist in this JomPay, then probably I would return, okay, bill cannot be identified. Okay, right? If I don't know the billers, I cannot pay, probably I return that.
Then why not JomPay just build their own app and then do this kind of?
Because JomPay is MyClear, right? So MyClear is government. For them to actually launch a new version of second phase actually takes them like 2 years, right? They recently launched. What they do right now is when you go to the bank, let's say you go to MaGIC account, you will see that link to pay bill, right? It used to be a drop down as everything. Now there's still drop down, but at least with open form. It's called JomPay, right? So it can be like if you registered, then you can pay. So I imagine I would use this service to make it a very low level tag, right? There's no crazy algorithm for OCR reading of the bills. It's really human managed. So probably I could launch this within a month, for example. I can quickly test this. If the bill doesn't exist in the JomPay, then I say, okay, no, it doesn't exist. If it exists, then probably I would say, okay, there's a link, you can pay. So basically you pay me, and then I pay through JomPay, right? So very low level to test if this actually works, right? Because you want to be agile. Like if it doesn't work, then probably I just throw it. I don't want to spend too much time doing algorithm back end and realize that it actually doesn't work, right? So probably I want to just quickly, in a month we can launch this, build this, and then make it happen. If it doesn't work, then we throw it out.
Then what's your monetization for this?
So let's say your bill is 20 ringgit, then it's 22 ringgit, you know?
I mean, you own the app. What is your monetization for the app?
Yeah, like, if the bill is 20 ringgit, when you want to pay, it's 22. There's a transaction fee. Okay? Good. Right. Anyone else with questions? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, if I'm a developer, I will ask all these questions because I need to understand about the app, right? I need to be invested within the app before I start building it, right? So I imagine that, what's your name? Alan. So let's say Alan is my developer, then he will ask me all these questions. So then I could like rehash of my thinking, right? And really understand, do I really understand this product or not, right? So it throw me a bunch of questions, and then I start to figure it out, okay, is he right? Is there any way to work things out? So you would expect your developer to actually work together with you. It's a collaboration, right? It's not so much that, hey, Alan just going to build this because I told him to do. It's really about, hey, Zumi, have you think about this? Have you think about this Singapore company actually doing this? Can you do the same thing, right? Have you think about the barcode things, right? And I just think about it right now, you know, because I didn't think about this before, right? All right. So the developers, so the makers, like, you have more questions? Well, there's no way to stop that. You probably could write a contract, but I think in Malaysia it's kind of illegal to do non-compete. I'm not sure about that. But my stand is like, I don't even care. Like what I'm doing right now, I probably want to build this app. Like, I want to build this, right? But I'm showing it to you guys. And like, I don't even care if you want to like copy it, right? Because whoever the best. So I would love to come from a mindset of abundance, right? That we are not really here to kill each other and really, you know, compete and just kill this other company. I would come to from abundance mentality that I would show you this, right? And I hope you would do a better job at it, right? Because when I build this and then I realize that, hey, actually your app is way much better, then I just like, screw this, right? You already provide value to the world, right? And I can do something else now, right? Not to hang up on my ideas, right? Because ideas are like freaking cheap. Right? You can sit down here, come up with 50 things, super awesome things, but can you actually execute it, right? So most people do the same thing, right? When they work with the developer, they're afraid the developers are going to steal their ideas, but that's like rarely happen, right? Like almost, okay, maybe it happens, but most of the time, like I haven't seen ideas that where actually things went really bad when people actually steal some ideas, right? And even if they steal it, probably they because like, hey, Zumi, like this things I'm going to build is great, but I think we should build it this way, blah, blah. And then the agreement is more about what's the best way to achieve this. And in the end, you break out, and then he builds something else, and you build something else. That's probably the common case because you believe in different way of doing things, right? But stealing, you need to trust your developers. There's no other ways around it, right? That's why a lot of collaborations, a lot of discussions, really understand the motivation between all the parties that involved is really, really important. Okay. More question? You have a question? No? Because you feel like... All right. So who's going to build this? Like, you don't have a question about this? It's just like very simple things to do. No?
Is it hardware or is it software?
That's a hardware. Yeah, no integration on software at all. I imagine this would be like maybe a hard cardboard paper that somehow you can just hook it up, like super easy and done. I think I've seen it somewhere, so just like come out of my mind and just put it here. I call it the Spring Egg because it can disappear anytime. Like, you can burn it and then disappear. All right, any more questions about the app? Before you build it, you need to understand, right?
Yes, sir, you have no control of your products because once you come out, people can copy very fast.
Yes, yeah. So it's really about branding. I mean, I'm not worried about copying at all at this point. I'm really about providing value to the world kind of thing, idealism. If this thing is good and people copy it, then it's good, right? And then everyone in general will be in a better position because there's actually a good product out there and people are using it, right? Because people will copy stuff like all the time. I wouldn't, as a small company, let's say now I'm the only guy who's going to work on this. As an individual, I probably can't stop this. If I'm Apple, then probably I could sue them. But in this case, I just like throw out there. And I believe that this is probably not the first idea this thing coming out. I believe probably somebody already did this, right? I mean, somebody already did some sort of things like you mentioned before, right? So nothing's really new. It's just how you execute it and how you actually put it out there. It's going to make it different than what actually is. All right. Yeah, so I hire a bunch of interns.
So the turnaround time won't be that.
Yeah, it won't be that quick, right? So you probably got a notification. So maybe maybe after you submit, you will see, bill pending, right? Pending processing. And after an hour or two, depending on where I outsource this Mechanical Turks, then you will get notification, hey, your bill is ready, and then you click pay. I think that could work, yeah. So probably we could use Amazon Mechanical Turk service, or probably we could hire a bunch of people in Philippines, because some company actually did this, right? It's so much easier to do this rather than to build your own algorithm. At a certain point when you're going to scale out, probably you need to build algorithm, but probably only 10 people are going to use this app initially, right? There's no reason to actually do a crazy algorithm behind it. Unless if my goal is actually to sell out this, I'm a really good programmer who really understands a crazy algorithm, like a good mathematician. I want to sell this at IP, then probably I want to do that, right? But here I'm just a business guy who feel like, hey, there's a potential there. I want to see what happened. Maybe I just just get my friend to actually do this, right? And try to convert the bills. Maybe initially I would do it myself, right? And test it out. Once I cannot scale out, I hire a few more people. Once it's going crazy, then we figure it out.
I'm looking at the John Pay site, right? They do not have any API to tap into it. So how
no API. So that's why I said this guy, we sit, log into your MaGIC, and start putting things in. Based on that.
Because it's a security. If I'm a user, why would I want to give my MaGIC account to you?
No, it's my MaGIC account. My MaGIC account, yeah. So you would pay me, I would pay through my MaGIC account, right?
All these can be automated with the tech. Then you're wasting a lot of time just to hire people.
Automate with the what?
More costly than the technology itself.
Automate what?
You're hiring of people to run the back end to help people pay money.
Right.
It's more costly than you build a whole technology that can automate.
Yeah, that's true. But what we're doing right now, we're trying to validate the ideas, right? We're trying to get to MVP as fast, right? So would I build a feature to automate this, or can I put a human being here, right? At this point, seems to me, right, the fastest way to launch is to put a human being here, right? So out of all the features that I want to build, I could cut automation. So I don't need to build automation yet, right? Then I just focus on another 4, for example, right? Because my goal actually to see if this thing actually works. If it works, then yeah, let's find a way to scale. Let's find a way to automate this, right? Let's find a way to actually work directly with the billers. So then you can go straight to the billers instead throwing a third party like JomPay, right? But that could happen next when I actually launch. When actually, if there's legs here, or when people actually give me funding for $1 million or whatever it is, then I could figure this out, right? Right now we are bootstrapping. We're trying to see if that's ideas work, and we just want to, the simplest way to actually launch it. I'm sorry?
You have founded few things. You have founded few things like Sales and GroupMe and some SMS apps. Perhaps
Yeah, and then
you can share a bit more from your experience, real life.
Real life experience, that's kind of like a backtrack. But what I'm sharing here is a real life experience. This is what happened when we launched the product, right?
Understand. I see. Why don't you compare what you are doing now with what you have done before? As in when we ask those questions like how will people copy our ideas, will they catch up to us? Can you answer it from real life experience? Like say Ronaldo says, when I do says, it doesn't really happen. That's all.
Right. Okay, so let's say we talk about let's say we talk about one company that I work on with related to bills called BillPlease, right? When we started off, we are actually a personal financial management app, right? Where you can actually store all your spendings and look at how much you spend on oil, on gas, or whatever it is, right? So you can look at some sort of manage your personal finance, right? So we build that, for example, right? We build that, right? And we put it out there. Yeah, it's kind of useful app, but not entirely useful. There's so many personal financial app out there, right? And then we realized, okay, this thing doesn't make sense anymore, right? It's really hard to push it out. I mean, you could get customers, but you will need like so many of them to actually make sense, to actually start making money, for example, right? And then we start to move on, hey, bill, so maybe I could do payment gateway, right? I want to be in the middle, so I can make an easier payment gateway, right? Because my experience with payment gateway in Malaysia, all of them pretty much sucky, so probably I want a better payment gateway, right? If you work payment gateway, don't get offended, so I know it works. And so we want to move into that, right? And then we try to build it out, and even before we able to launch, we realized that after we talk it through, like have all these hard questions being answered by everybody that's involved, and then we realized that, okay, maybe not, right? And then we start to move into a bill payment solution, right? And still, when we work into bill payment, we want to focus on consumer first, right? How consumer can actually pay their bills, like somehow get all these big billers to send the bills to you, and you can manage all the bills. So some sort of still personal finance, but easily make a payment, right? So we put it out there, we launched, we put it out there, and feel like, okay, nobody really care about this. People just want to pay their bills, they really want to manage all these things. Right? It's really about how you send the bills to this user. Nobody would want to register hoping that all the bills would come to one place, right? Only a few set of people who are very organized, and these type of people already set like auto debit and whatnot, right? The rest of the world are more reactive. When you get the bill, you pay. So we learned that lesson, right? And then we move on. Okay, let's screw the consumer. Let's just focus on billers, right? Let's just focus on you as a company. Send out a bill to your customer, people that you already know, right? So we start doing on that directions, and that's pretty much like what it is right now, right? So you can see that a long process of actually trying things out, and it doesn't work out, right? And always come back to this, right? Answer a lot of tough questions, right? Try to understand how thing actually works, put it out and it doesn't work, right? So that's probably on the BillPlease and how we pivoted along the way, right? And that's like a year-long process. What we have right now is so simple. If you want to copy it, you probably can build it over the weekend, right? It's just a way that a biller could send out their bills and people can pay. That's it. There's nothing else. People can pay through their email, right? That's it. No need to registration. But to get to that, we need to do all this hard question, pushing things out there, doesn't work, do it again, and pivoted along the way, right? In terms of copying, we actually launched groupsmall.com back then, which after 3 months got hired, we got bought up by Groupon and become Groupon Malaysia, right? And this is on the other side, right? This is on the other side. We copying other people, right? And that's fine back then because everybody knows about the Groupon war, right? The clone war, where in every country in the world, everybody trying to clone Groupon. And if you are the best within that company, Groupon will just buy you out, right? So that's what happened in our case, right? So we actually, let's just copy Groupon and see what happened. So if your product really good, like Groupon is a good product, right? Even if someone copied you, it's fine because in the end, it's compliment you. Because if you are really good, then you could just buy them off. Okay, that's probably like one way of looking at it. It's like probably a bit far-fetched for most of us, but that's also like, you know, it's fine if you're copying me rather than I'm just gonna buy you out, for example, right? So that's on Group Small. We also have a product called AgeShare, right, which is a social sharing network, right? And back then, we got people to actually build the same thing, right? Exactly the same thing. You can share stuff, and then you get paid for it. This is not a new thing. People have been doing a link exchange, for example, for the longest time since the web first existed, right? So we just like twist it and put it in a new directions. And people did copy this, right? But then again, it's about execution, right? How can you actually maintain a relationship with the client, for example, right? How actually you run your business. So after a few months of running this, the computer just, you know, back off and then the site's gone, right? So they copy everything. It's the same as what we did. We copy Groupon, they copy us, they copy all the CSS and all the look and layout of it, right? Everything, sorry, everything. And if you can't execute, like it almost doesn't matter, right? Yeah, this is gonna high level. This is gonna experience throughout the years working with Ravasher and SACE. All right. So in the end, it almost doesn't matter. Whatever I say, it's almost. I can be right, I can be wrong at the same time. So should we move on? Do we have more questions about the product? Good. No questions. Can buy off. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do when we have a product, after we've spoken about the high level of what the product should be and answering a bit of a question, we're going to ask more questions, right? And ideally, you want to do this with maybe like 10 people in the room. That's like max of it, 10 or 12. Right? If it's more, then it will be really confusing. If you just want to launch a small product like what we have right now, probably like it'll be me, a product owner, another 2 developers maybe, 1 front end, that's like 4 of us, right? Or maybe I have a business development guy who trying to do the sales, for example, or internet marketing guy, marketer. Then probably like 5 of us, right? This is 5 in the team. So probably that's kind of like a good mix, right? If that's too many, it's really hard. So the first thing that you need to do is figure out what are the goals. The goals can be a business goal, or it could also be a product goals, right? Or it could be like, I think that you feel like important. So for these 2 things, I've set a few goals there. For disappearing act, I want it to be cheap. Let's say 100 ringgit for a table, for a desk, for example. I want it to be really lightweight. I want the production to be really fast. Though I don't know how this thing gonna happen yet, so I'm just putting out there, okay, this is what we want and this is what we feel this product should be, right? And I just want to focus on desks only. I don't care about chairs or whatever random shit that you have in the furniture realm. And for Boleh Bayar, I want the minimal features, like I just want to step and see the bills and pay, that's it, right? I don't care about iPhone yet, although I use iPhone, but I figure out it's easier to just push to the Android user. And maybe I want the payment to be only through credit card, right? I don't want a normal bank payment, for example. And I want to support all utilities companies, okay, maybe in Malaysia, right? So this is a goal I have, right? This is kind of like business goal, this is like technical goals. For this guy, this is probably technical, this is probably business. I probably could add more. This is things I can think about right now. Anybody think we should add more goals or Okay, you know, come on, you're building this with me. Probably you have different goals. Okay, so the goal is on the current sprint, right? It can be short term. Technically it's a short term because during this development, right? So the term is entirely up to you when you're going to launch this. If you're saying that I want to launch this within 3 months, then this goal is just for this sprint, like specifically for this development process, just focus on this goal, right? And in ideal scenario, we don't want to move this goal away, right? Like some goals sounds a bit like features, but technically I just want this, right? So why we want this is because, let's say you want to build something that out of this goal, right? Let's say I want to launch boleh bayar in 1 month, right? And suddenly you feel, hey, I found an iOS developer, like let's just build this together, right? Suddenly someone, I want to do it for free, for example. Seems like, okay, that's kind of like good opportunity. Someone want to do this for free and you can do iOS. But when I really think, does it fit my goal? Maybe not, right? If I get this iOS developer to work with me, now I need to think about how it's going to look like. I just want to copy over my iOS design because they have a different experience, user experience compared to from between Android and iOS, right? So then probably more things need to be done, like come up with new mockups, new layout for iOS. Then even though opportunities sound great, but it could impact my deadline, my deliveries, for example, right? Then maybe I'm just stick to my goal. No, maybe you can do this afterwards, right? So you just set a clear boundaries on what actually you are doing right now, right? And try to stay focused on that. Yeah, so if it's 3 months, it's 3 months until the current development. And then when you do another sprint, you could do this again. And you can say maybe your goals are different, right? Maybe in this current sprint, our goal is to focus on iOS or focus on very awesome web views, web mobile views, for example. And you can actually do that. All right? More questions? No? Okay, so we're going to agree that this is the goal, right? This is the thing that we're going to work on. All right. And let me check my Twitter. Okay, nobody. Non-goals. As I mentioned before, it says it work as a boundary, right? It's set as a clear boundary, like whatever that if you feel like you want to do and it falls under non-goal category, you shouldn't do it at all, right? At least in this current sprint. Probably you can do it later, but not now, right? So my non-goals for Boleh Bayar is I don't want to support all Android versions. I should specify what I mean by all Android and just assume like whatever that's all the new one only. I don't really care about design. I just want a rough rudimentary app that could work. I don't care about registration, so we don't care about user. We just care about people downloading the app and using it. Right? That's kind of like what I said as a non-goal. So if we try to build more or fall into this, then probably I don't want to do it. Let's say somebody come in and say, I can come up with an awesome design for you. Okay, maybe not. I don't really care about this because then it takes time to actually implement this. Right? For disappearing act, we don't care about how long this table can last, right? 1 year is good enough. After a year, just buy a new one because it's cheap. I don't care about how they design, like, you don't need to put different colors, whatever it is. A very rough desk could work for me. I don't care about waterproofing it. If you put it and then you spill a drink on it, then it's just going to get destroyed. I don't care, right? So we just want to focus on what we set to do right now, a desk that's lightweight and cheap. That's about it, right? If we found out that we can actually do this, maybe we say, okay, we can do this later, just launch what we're doing right now, right? There's always this trade-off. So this is a boundary that we set, that we want to do anything that's with regard to this, okay? Any question?
From the way that you have mentioned just now, the way on the test market board there, this itself have created, right, a lot of very bad apps into the store. Because when you test an idea, you just put a shitty design, you just want to try the market,
right?
And then user can install and praise it. Hey, this is a shitty app, I'm not going to use it. You're not going to get your idea validated because, right, I have opened the app, I'm not interested already.
Right.
You don't get the real data, you don't get the real usage,
Right.
performance and all those.
Okay.
In the end, right, like this, right, you're killing off your own business idea, whereas in fact, whatever is a great product, if you launch it out there, okay, as a user experience, as a user behavior, People will not continue to use because it's a shitty product.
Okay. So to answer this question, we go back to the explanation early on, right? What we want to put out there is a half product, not a half-ass product.
Yeah.
So things that you talk probably most falls under the realm of half-ass product, right? People that just doing things.
It is a workable product that you put in there, and I can tell you a lot of Malaysia apps is a shitty UI, UX design. It's
Right.
great apps, but when you use it, you just want to uninstall it.
Right.
That's happening. It's not functioning. It's functioning. This product ABC, I want to have a 1 to 10, maybe 1 to 5 functions. It works. But when it comes to user experience, user use of it, they get pissed off.
Right.
That's the
So
issues.
So that's the reason why we launched early on, right? When the user got pissed off, then we learn from it, right? Then we know that.
User forever. In fact, you are supposed to get a great market share of it, but because of this, no one can use, and you look at the data, you get the wrong data.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, there's so many users out there, right? So people who uninstall us probably like, okay, when we first see there's 100 people who install and uninstall, then we learn from this data, right? Shit, something is completely wrong here. Why people are installing, right? I mean, all this bad thing can be switched for learning experience, right? First, we don't launch a half-ass product. We just launch a half product. And if people find that not useful, because if an app is actually useful, right? And it doesn't need to be beautiful, right? It needs to be useful. Certain apps need to be beautiful because it fits whatever the purpose of the app, right? Let's say Reddit, for example, it's not a beautiful site, right? Craigslist, for example, not a beautiful site, right? The UX is pretty much, the UI is pretty much a bunch of lists, right? But if people can find value in it, then they can find this useful, right? So the reason why you want to push things that a half product, at least we can focus on like one value proposition for this product, right? And if nobody find it useful, regardless of the designs or the functionalities, then you immediately know, right? 100 downloads, 100 uninstall. Shit, this doesn't work, right? Maybe I should reach out and get other people to actually test it out, like talk to someone in real world. Hey, can you use this app, see what happened, right? And get this real feedback. But this only happened after you launch, right? Before you launch, there's no way of knowing, right?
It's better to have a beta launching than to launch a real product into it. Beta users means that it's a closed users. You get 100, 200, 500 to test it out, then get feedback and launch it. Many people don't do this. They just launch a product there, and then it kills off all the actual business creativity. I'm not talking just about UI, it's about UX also. UX means user, the functionality itself.
Right. Well, that's entirely up to you, right? Once you already launch your product, so we are thinking about building a product, right? So this is the process of building. So once you already built, how are you going to get this feedback is entirely up to you, right? I'm fine with actually putting it out there in the store and getting people to download and test. Or maybe I'm only fine with, hey, let's use a flight test and just send to my 10 friends, for example. Or I could pay a service where people can really release a beta product, right? So that's a decision that you can make after you actually have this product, right? And that's for your learning experience. So once you're done with all this, you can execute your product, launch it however you want, either test on a small set of market. Let's say I just want to launch on Apple Store in Chile, for example, right? Or in Thailand. Just set one country and set this country as your test case scenario, right? Or you could do the beta, or you could buy a beta service. People could just go and test, right? Or you just go crazy and launch on Product Hunt, for example, right? And then you just learn from it. This decision can be made when you actually have the product. Until then, there's no reason actually, to think too much about it yet, right? Because you don't actually have the product, right? Once you have the actual product in your hand, then you see, okay, this looks good, man. I've tried with my 5 friends here, and they feel like, hey, this could work. Let's just test it out on real market, right? If they feel like a mixed feeling about it, like 2 people say something else, 2 people something completely different, then, all right, I want more opinion, let's launch a beta. Right? I mean, you can decide this later on. There's no need to actually concern about it too much until you actually have it, right? You could plan for it out, then you can execute it later, right? Does that answer your question, usually? Understand that you don't want shitty product on the market, right? Yeah.
Too many shitty products in the market.
Yeah, right. Which is fine, completely fine, because that's an opportunity on its own, right? When you know there's a bunch of shitty product, hey, just build an awesome product. No need to worry about the shitty product anymore.
I think it's right in a way, but considering all of the audience right now here, I think that's maybe another level.
Okay.
Yeah, another level of development. But for now, I think the best Yeah, because all of these people, they have an idea, but they don't know where to go exactly.
Right.
So I think maybe you can focus more on that, basically.
Okay, yeah.
This one I think is true, it's true. But only when you get into that, then only you talk about that somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's all the steps, right? This is all like a small step that you're taking, right? First you clarifying the concept, then what goal, and after you're done with everything and actually build, then you can move to the next steps and how actually you're gonna push it out there, right? So, but that's a useful information to have too, right? If I realize that, hey, if I do a quick search on App Store and see all these building product are shitty looking, then I realize maybe my goal is a beautiful design, right? Maybe let's focus on really UX is your main goal right now. Have a proper, beautiful looking app is really a goal, right? So then I can move it, okay, maybe what? This shouldn't be non-goal. Beautiful design should actually be in our goals, right? Then actually we can properly set our deadline and really focus on build an awesome looking product and not just a product that just work, right? So all this you can decide, right? Once you understand your market, when you do your research, then you can do it, right? If a product never existed before, then hey, whatever, I don't really care about the look. Now I'm just going to launch it out there because I think people will find it useful, right? All right, thanks guys. Anything else? Still have a lot of time. Nope. All right. Now we're going to work on risk, which is, I think, we kind of like jump the gun there. But risk is what things could go wrong, right? And risk is really important to understand, especially from everybody that work within the team. Let's say you have 5, you want everybody to come up with their own list of risks, right? It can be anything. So just give them a, post-it note, for example. Everybody start writing down whatever thing that feel as a risk, right? It could be a business risk. It could be a technical risk. It could be of whatever experience, user experience, or user adoption, so anything that you can think of, right? And it's important for everyone to come up with this, because sometimes you as a product owner, you don't realize that actually certain things there's a risk on certain things, right? But the developer actually realized this. Let's say we want to build, let's see what I have here, right? So maybe one of the risks, there'll be issue on privacy, right? And okay, shit, what happened? Because now people give us their bills. This is actually a privacy issue. How are we going to work within the PDPA Act, for example, right? So someone will start putting it out there. I think my idea was good until I stumbled into this. Right? Maybe when you start building, we need to figure out how can we solve this risk, right? And another is user habit. Now we are changing user behavior, right? Nobody actually take a paper bill and snap it and pay, right? This is something completely new. Would people actually use this, right? So we ask of this question. Maybe like, I don't know any developer to build, right? So that's a real risk to me. I only talk to these people who kind of know what they're doing, but not really, right? Maybe. On this Spring Act, maybe I haven't done market validation. I don't even know if people want this. So that's a big risk for me, right? Cost could be really costly to actually launch this. Maybe to get it cheap under 100 ringgit, I need to actually build 1,000 desks, for example, right? And technical competency, like I have no skill, I have no knowledge about how actually to build this stuff, right? And these are actually like real risks, right? The risk could still be there. The risk could be fixed when you start working on the stories, on the product itself. And certain risks just gonna won't go away, and you just know how to mitigate that, right? You won't really solve it, you just know how to react to it, right? And this really depends. It could be a lot of things. I mean, yeah, really. If you start thinking right now, what risks of Boleh Bayar could have, you could come up with a lot right now. And yeah, I don't know. You want to give it a shot, see if you actually come up. So one risk that probably could, like you mentioned just now, the app could be shitty looking, right? Because we're not focusing on this UI, and because it's shitty looking, then nobody's gonna use it, right? That could be a risk, right? We're gonna put it there. And maybe once we look at the risk, all right, let's probably switch our goal a bit and fine tune it to actually mitigate this risk, right? Certain risk is fine. I'm probably fine with PDPA because when they're not gonna sue people immediately. When they come to you, there would actually, the reason why PDPA acts actually the compound costs really costly because they're not really looking to execute it. So when they come to you, they can actually talk to you through and then try to find a solution, right? So, okay, maybe I could get my first strike with PDPA, I didn't really care about it, right? If I already, so then let's just launch first, when PDPA guy come, then we figure it out, right? So I could be thinking on that perspective, maybe, right? Yeah, it could be any other thing, right? Certain things you mitigate it on how you're going to react to it because the risk is always going to be there, right? Being a startup, you mean you need to be agile about this. You need to just, you know, poke people and then see what happens, right? You don't ask for permission, you ask for forgiveness later. So just do what you feel necessary. Questions, suggestions?
If this is a startup business method, by the time you go to this, your company will be out of money.
I'm sorry?
Your company will be out of money already.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Timeline.
We haven't talked about timeline. Like, what do you mean that we're out of money? How do I out of money?
Number one, there's no revenue. Number two,
That's revenue. That's $2 revenue here.
no, when you launch out the products, when you test the products, okay, the revenue is not going to be fantastic. There's a facts of life.
But there's revenue, right?
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
going to cover the daily operations.
What are my daily operation costs? So you haven't, I mean, you're talking on assumption that
No,
they are,
are you doing the startup on a part-time or startup on a full-time for this one?
doesn't matter.
It does matter.
So it does matter when you start calculating, right? So we haven't actually started calculating on how actually you're going to spend this, right? So I think it's unfair to just looking at this and say we will run out of revenue within certain timeline, right? Because we need to put it out there and see, okay, this is my expectation, this is my cost, then only we will know, right? Now it's all just based on assumptions, correct? So until we launch, then only we will know. Before that, whatever that we say are just a bunch of assumptions. I'm sorry?
So what is the cost that you're looking into to launch it?
Right, so the cost probably like getting people to build this, right? Secondly, the cost probably like you mentioned operation cost, like who actually going to do this, right? So if you actually want to do this, then okay, let's say after we launch, then I can start fine-tune things, right? So the main cost probably you look at, okay, the simple app like this, if you go to freelancers.com, probably going to cost you like 5,000 ringgit to build one Android app, for example. Depends on who you talk to, but that's kind of like a fair amount, right? A cheap amount to actually have something out there, right? And then the second thing, probably my cost is if I want to do a marketing, right? So probably I want to say, hey, I'm just going to spend my own money on 1,000 ringgit to do a Facebook marketing, for example, right? To put stuff on Facebook and then see what happens. So I know I'm going to burn this 1,000 because it's just on marketing, right? And then I start to think, okay, let's look at the numbers now. What are our expectations of people using this, right? And then maybe I'm fine with burning money for the first 6 months, right? I'm going to put it out there like my own money of 5,000 ringgit to actually run this and run marketings and pay people to do stuff, right? For example, this is just a PR numbers to put out there. And then we can start looking at this after 2 months, 3 months, and if there's any other cost that could pop up, then you can just try play with the numbers, right? So until you have these numbers, right, there's no way of you knowing, right? You could just put in a good spreadsheet, but that's about it. It's just a good spreadsheet. It's not a real world scenario, right? I imagine I could run this with a very low cost and just spend my own time at night, for example, to do the marketing, to actually process the bill. Maybe then we talk about, shit, I don't have money, money is a limitation. Then I'm just going to launch this app and make sure people know when you submit a bill, there's a 24 hours before you actually get your bill, right? Then every night I just go and I can, keep putting this bill in, right? For example, right, just to see what happened. Yeah, a lot of things can be done. But actual cost is probably just initial development.
So for example, if this thing, somebody did it, right, and you're using it, and it will take you 24 hours to get to know how much of the thing will you use it?
Maybe not, right? Maybe not, but I wouldn't know, right? Until I test it out. I could assume that people not using it.
That you're going to put like say 50K registration into it,
Right,
for example.
right.
Okay? So you are in the know that you might burn this 15K. So that's what
Yeah, right. So if I say that maybe 50K is a big amount, right? Then maybe 50K is a big amount, maybe 10K should be used to hire people, right? Then start play around like that, right? If I say I'm just going to spend like 5K on it, then probably not a big amount, just like, 10% of a 50, then probably fine to test 24 hours, return and see what happened, right? So all this thing, I mean, the only way you could know is actually to go and test, right? Ideally, you want a best product when you launch, but this is not an ideal world, right? In ideal world, yeah, this could happen, but in real world, there's a lot of things happen, right? So it depends on what's your threshold of risk, then you can start play around with this, right? There's no right way of doing it, right? Yeah. Someone asked a question just now, right? Is it you? No? The what?
The trust issues of this app. For example, let's say this is started by Bangalore or this is started by Airtel, where they have credibility behind them.
Right.
So let's say I'm using whatever I want to use it. It's a new app, and I'm paying using my credit card information. I don't mind using it, but I would trust it more if it's from PayPal or Bangalore. I mean, normally that's what people.
Okay, so how to build trust?
Yeah, how to.
Okay, shit, I don't know. Let me think. So if I give you an app, right, and you want to pay through it, right, probably there's few things that matter. First is where the app come from, right? Maybe what are the branding behind the apps, right? And right now I don't have any branding, right? Okay, shit, I cannot resolve this unless you talk to other people to actually put a branding behind it. Maybe then I could solve it by using a non-payment gateway, right? Maybe I should use PayPal, for example, or I go to MaGIC and use MaGIC as my payment gateway, right? So I cannot resolve the problem when you're going to trust me when you download. That's a bit hard, but maybe I can put it into the description and say everything is paid through MaGIC, we're not storing anything on your credit card details, blah, blah. Maybe I could do it that way, right? So when you want to play, when you click pay, you actually go to PayPal, a well-known company, and you put your credit card there. Like, I'm not storing anything. Maybe that could solve the trust issues, right? So I'm just saying that probably I would also say all the communication between servers are encrypted, right? For whatever blah blah it is. Or maybe I could, as a startup, probably I wouldn't go crazy. Probably I just go to up to that level and see what happened, right? If trust is really an issue, then probably I want a co-branding with another company, for example, right? Maybe I could talk to payment gateway and say, hey, can we like collaborate together? And this is like part of your add-ons app, right? Maybe then I could go to IP88, for example, and say, hey, this is boleh bayar and IP88. Then I could do it that way. Yeah, I think that could work. Yeah, but it's good through us. I mean, this is a collaboration, right? If IP88 want to go and build it, then they can go and build it. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, then you just deduct lah. I mean, all these things, once you start thinking about it, okay, so then we need to tell the user, then we tell the user, okay, so now it's a PayPal, right? So instead of 2 ringgit charges, when you see the bill, then we just add on all this stuff, right? You communicate this to the user. If you pay 2 shares, there are 5% or 4.9% charges, right? If they still want to use it, then it's fine, right?
Then what's the difference that we think that if I use my own internet banking and pay, like log into my MaGIC account and pay the bill rather than using the app?
Yeah, you could, right? But what are we solving here, right? What are we solving? What are we solving is actually we're bringing the physical to the digital, right?
Yeah, but if I go to MaGIC online, MaGIC.com, I can also pay bill from there. I don't even need to have the app itself.
Yeah, you could, right? So maybe that you are not the target market, right? So who are we targeting? We are targeting people that, hey, I see a summons here, I just want to pay. Or like, shit, there's so many things to fill in to pay my, tax for my house, for example, right? So many things to fill in, then probably I don't want to do that, right? I just want to snap, okay, got the thing, just pay. Right? I don't want to bother about filling it. Maybe these are the type that we are targeting, right? We're probably not targeting people who are well self-organized, right? Who are every month at the 5th of the month do all their banking, all their bill, whatever it is, right? Maybe not those persons, right? Maybe just focus on these people who just want to pay ad hoc and want to simplify things, like probably that could be the market, right? Yeah.
My question to is actually about trust. It's like the question about trust earlier, I think the real problem is actually, is that even a question? Like we as a builder, we worry about a lot of stuff, but actually might not happen in Malaysian market, for example.
Yes, true
People
also,
trust
yeah.
us, like the things, the experience that you have, they might not have trust problems. Once you have a proper site, it's useful, people will just pay. I think that's one maybe you can share from experience. People actually don't worry that much in Malaysia.
Yeah.
That question doesn't even exist. I think second thing is, sometimes I think it's not about paying because we have so, like what you say, we can pay through PayPal, banks, all those. It's not a problem, but it's about customer worrying after I pay, will you deliver? If you don't deliver, what can I do? You know,
Right.
you might not be a rigid company. I mean,
Right.
that too is a question that's more practical to me.
Okay. Yeah, I think you can also solve that problem by using a well-known payment gateway where they can do a dispute if anything goes wrong, for example, right? But yeah, you're right. Certain things that we think is a problem, but when we put out there, then it's not a problem anymore, right? For example, when we launched BillPlease to send out the bills through emails, right? We thought that nobody would pay this bill because it's come from BillPlease, not from the company who are supposed to send you the bill, right? But people actually pay. So we are quite surprised because I probably wouldn't pay if some random guy sent me an email and asked me to pay. Probably not, right? We're going to do a well research and say who actually this guy, call that company first, blah, blah, right? But people actually pay, which is like quite surprising. Right? So maybe certain things that we as a product owner or developer thinks is an issue, but for the rest of the world, right? They're just like, I don't care, I just want something that's easy to use and actually solve my problem, right? So yeah, back to the original discussion. So why we're doing all this is to actually surface out all these issues, right? Then you start to see, okay, there's actually a lot of things I need to think before I actually could launch this thing, right? And maybe certain things I'm fine with not solving it. Maybe certain things I should actually make an effort to solve it. The cost, right? So that's why we're doing all this. So after this, we come up with the things that we need to build, right? Specific things that we need to build. Then I can show this to the developer and say, hey, look, what do you think? Like, how long is it going to take? Of course, this is a very hypothetical answer from the developer, because if the developer is really good, even if the developer is good, their estimation probably could still be wrong, right? So once you're done with this, I'm going to walk you through with things that we need to do immediately, right? So let's say we already cover the risk, cover the goals, cover the non-goals. We have a good discussion just now about what things would go wrong and what not, which is really great. And now we move on to what we call trying to understand who are the users, right? For this app, persona and roles. Try to understand the psychology behind the users, right? So for Boleh Bayar, assume my user will be the user, people who download the app and just want to pay the bill. Second will be the bill reader, which is those interns that I'm going to hire to read the bills and convert it to the bill within the system. And the bill payer, someone who actually, once you pay me, then I'm going to pay through JomPay, right? So there's like 3 persons going to use the system, right? And when I look at this now, I realize actually it's not just a mobile app. I need a back end to handle for bill reader and bill payer, right? So we're going to, okay, there are actually more things to build now instead of just building a mobile app. And now things are actually getting a bit more complicated than they initially how I imagined it to be. Disappearing act. So my users, I'm thinking, okay, maybe not a specific set of users, maybe a type of users. So I'm thinking about maybe co-working space is going to use this desk, so they can actually close things up for event and open it up again. Maybe event space, the same reason, right? Maybe startup office or hipster cafe, they want to look cool, they want to do the new thing. And if I brand this desk properly, they could be my customer, right? So I'm thinking, okay, these are the type of people who are going to use it, right? As you can see, this is a completely different way of looking at it for hardware product, right? These are specific users, because this is hard to find specific users, right? Because it's just a simple desk. One person are going to just use that, right? So we're looking like what type of people are using it, then we can tailor the app specifically to this type of people, maybe, right? That's clear, right? Who's going to use the app? I don't think I have much to put there. Okay, probably not, right? So after we got this, now we start asking question, what actually can they do, right? From this question, we're going to break down of things that people can do, which is what we call the features of stories. And from this, then only you can see how complex the development going to be. And that's how probably you're going to come up with the costings on how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost, right? If you just tell me, like, I want to build this sort of app, blah, 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 the high-level concept, it's really tricky to answer this question. But once you break it down, then you start to see the whole picture of it. All right, so these are a sample of stories, right? A user should be able, so we have a few stakeholders, the personas just now. So maybe I'll start focus on user. Really simple, user should be able to take multiple pictures of the build, right? So that's one feature, right? Or maybe even before that, user can take a picture of the build, right? And then once you build that, you have a second feature that user can take multiple pictures of the build. So you start to build it step by step. And maybe user should be able to pay the bill, right? That's one thing that we want them to do. User should be able to create bill from pictures, right? This is a bill reader should be able to create bill. So meaning my intern, once they look at the picture, they can create a bill. Right? Maybe then after this, my bill payer should be able to pay the bills once the bill being paid, for example. Okay, that's actually a lot of things. Okay, maybe not. Maybe that's about it, right? And disciplining act, I think what they can do is very simple. They can assemble the desk. They can stow away, throw it somewhere. They should be able to adjust the height. That's probably things that I want, right? I just want these 3 things, and that's probably actually 4 things there. And I don't want anything more than that, maybe. Because I think as long as the user be able to take picture of the bill and pay, then they're good, right? But I could actually break it down even more when I start looking at it, right? How actually you'll be able to pay the bill? Maybe user can see a list of bills first before they actually start to pay, right? So now I can start to add more stories to it, right? Once you have this, you start to see the flow on how things should work, and you feel like you're going to add more, then you just keep adding more to it, right? Anybody going to add more to this? Okay, good. No questions on how things work here, right? It's very straightforward. You just really think on the perspective of the user, right? Not as you as a product owner, because it's so much, it's so easy to actually get distracted if you are thinking from the point of view of a product owner, right? So always like think back, try to imagine the experience of using it, right? So I can take a picture and then what? And then what do I see, right? Maybe then I would see your bill is pending. So then I add a story there, right? User should see a list of bills with their status, pending, processed, paid, right? So I start to think again, okay, I see a list, okay, what do I do next? Maybe I click on the bill. What do I see? Then actually see a bill. So you add another story. User should be able to see the detail of the bills, right? So you think again, okay, now I see the detail of the bills. What can I do next? Maybe I can delete the bills, right? So after, maybe I don't want to pay this. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe I can report the bills, right? And once we have just list down things that probably the user can do, after I report the bills, or maybe the bill is correct, then I want to pay and only click pay, right? So you add, user can actually report the bill, user can delete the bill, maybe user can archive the bill just to follow a normal email style, email workflow, right? And from that you keep adding more, right? So everybody's in the room will work on this, right? We try to imagine themselves the user and see what they can do, right? So you can edit like, it's going to be like more than whatever we have here, right? Okay. Once we have all this, you're going to start to prioritize on the stories. Let's say you have 100 stories. Okay, maybe too much. Maybe you have like 50 stories. Still too much. Maybe you have like 30 stories, right? And then you start looking at all these things. Let's look at back on what we have, right? Okay, maybe what's the most important part? Then I want to move it up, right? I want to move it up. I want to like sort everything by priority, right? Maybe to take picture is the most important because without that, there's nothing else you can do, right? Maybe see the bill details is important too. Okay, pay is important. Maybe archive is not that important. I'm going to drag it down. Maybe delete the bill. I also don't care about deleting the bill yet. I can put it down and start sorting things out, right? And you're going to argue about this within the team and see what actually makes more sense. And then we just start to see, okay, what actually you can start to build. And this is important because once you prioritize, you would start to see that maybe what you have is too much, right? You're going to talk to your developers, for example, and the developer's going to say, look, I'm looking at all these features, I'm thinking this is going to cost you 50K, for example, and it's going to take you maybe 3 months to actually build this, like, and then you're going to say, that doesn't make sense, I'm going to launch in 1 month, right? And I'm going to launch in 10K, for example. It's really up to you. It's either the deadline or the cost, right? So then once you have a prioritization ready, you would start to scale down and say, okay, we have a complete set of features here, but for MVP, maybe we don't need everything, right? Things like reporting or deleting builds just now, maybe not that important, I can just move it out, right? So you're going to draw a line between what I think actually you need to build, right? And then your developers start to see, okay, now that you cut the feature into half, yeah, I can give you a discount. Now it's going to be like 10,000, for example. This is like a simple scenario. Chances are they're going to charge you by hourly rate and see how long it's going to take. They're going to give you some sort of random estimates on maybe it's going to take me like 3 weeks to build this. Whenever a developer say 3 weeks, you just double it up or triple it. The estimation is always going to be wrong. So scaling down is really important, because you want to deliver on time, and by scaling down you start to move features that you feel actually not really ready yet, right? Again, you don't want to you don't want to like deliver a half-ass product, right? So you just want to make sure even if you cut a feature, it actually won't affect anything much, right? So this is like some sort of sample of, let's say, this is a completely different app, right? So maybe what you do, once you have a feature, you actually look at your mocks and then you see, okay, there are a lot of things that doesn't make sense here, right? Maybe I don't care about, so what is this? This is a library this is a gourmet library, yeah. So you have a video, you have a product, you have a list of product, you have a latest reviews, blah, blah, whatnot. And just for your MVP, you start to feel that, okay, maybe a lot of things here actually doesn't make sense. I'm just going to start cutting it out based on the stories that I created just now, right? So then when you launch, you won't have all this. You just have the features that are actually important, the features that actually works, right? So maybe when you talk about Boleh Bayar just now, there's actually a lot more things you can do. For example, you could actually sync to your MaGIC account maybe, right? You can store your password there and then you could scrape it or whatever that is, right? Maybe in the future it could be that, but for now, it shouldn't be that, right? It should be just the simplest way and a product that actually people can use, but really simple for you just to test the market, okay? Yeah, so the important part of here is always to be ruthless, because you love your own ideas, right? Everybody knows this. Like, I have ideas, I feel regret. I feel like Boleh Bayar is a great app, right? But maybe like half of you say that's a shitty app, I'm not gonna use it, right? So maybe like whatever features that I list down here, I feel like, hey, this is people really gonna use it. But truly, right, when you talk about privacy just now, like maybe like people don't really care, right? So maybe then you start to think from the perspective of the user, okay, these are things that I don't really need, so I'm just gonna start being a really good editor and cut things down and just to the most minimum thing that I can push up there and people can use it, right? This is the most important part. It's so easy to build things that are not necessary. Right? When we build, even when we work on our product, right? There's a lot of time that feel like, okay, shit, the user really need this, right? This type of reporting is really important. But then again, once you already launch it, nobody uses this reporting, for example, like, because it doesn't make sense for them. Then, yeah, probably like maybe reporting is not important until it's important. Right? So for Boleh Bayar, maybe I don't need a reporting page, right? If I want a detail, I just go to the database and pull the record myself, maybe, right? Until I keep using the same thing, then I start to create a report for it, report page, right? So you always like, you know, just be, if you don't really need it yet, then just cut it down, right? Just launch with the simplest thing that you can launch, right? And that's pretty much done, right? So what you have right now, just to recap, first you have a goal of how the product's going to be. Second, you have a non-goal, a set of boundary of why you shouldn't build, right? You shouldn't travel out of this boundary. And then you have a risk, right? When you start creating your stories activity just now, if you could solve the risk by building features, then you add the feature there, right? Maybe for privacy, then you would have you would build a feature that user can actually accept a privacy notice before they can proceed, that's probably going to solve like half of the privacy problem, right? So you build a feature there to actually solve that privacy. Like I said, certain risks can't really be solved, but if it can be solved by building a feature for it, then you can just list it down. Maybe not building yet, building later, but still you already like try to mitigate this risk, right? So goals, non-goals, and risks, right? And after that, you have a list of personas, people who actually want to use your product. Try to understand who they are. Sometimes I think in certain company, what they do, especially a product company, what they would do is they actually put a real human being, right? They put a name to it, right? Let's say this girl's name is Lina. She's age 25. She works with a big corporation. She loves dancing, blah, blah. So then you have one set of users, right? Then you start really to think about your product from the point of view of these users, right? So maybe another person can be like, okay, this is a 40-year-old man, a businessman, he's really busy, he have 5 kids. Well, try to understand from his name is Hakim, for example, right? And then you can have a few set of users and a few set of personas that you feel that you're going to use your product and start to think from their point of view, right? So if you want to put it to that level, yeah, you can, right? I normally don't, but it could be really useful, especially you're trying to, if you still haven't figured out who are your users, right? Maybe for Boleh Bayar, then I probably need to do this because I'm not really sure who actually going to use this yet, right? Maybe I'm just going to assume this is like a 20-year-old who really care about bill, but just don't want to get screwed by the system for not paying the bill, maybe, right? Then try to figure out who do I know and then try to make this as a persona, right? All right, so the few things that, again, we're going to recap. Efficient communication, right? A lot of tough questions, a lot of awkward conversations, like friction is really good, right? Because when you have friction, then you know people actually care, right? When you have conflict, then you actually know that your developer actually care about the product, right? Because if they don't care, then you say, okay, I'm just going to build everything, right? If they're like throw out, right, like what you did, right? So you really like think critical about it, right? Then you actually force yourself to actually think more about the product. And you know, the moment you have a room where everybody start fighting for things, then you have a bunch of people who really care about the product, right? And this is always a good scenario. If you are sitting there, like I'm sitting here, I'm explaining to the 5 guy, and they're okay, good, I really love this thing, blah, blah, blah. Chances are I'm not gonna, go that far with this team, right? So efficient communication, expect conflict, awkward things only awkward up until you talk about it, right? So awkward conversation, once they have more awkward conversation, once that have more friction conversation, then it's just a normal conversation, right? So expect more of this, don't run away from it. The next thing, again, clarity, right? When we work on something, even though we have these goals and non-goals, help you to make a decision, but you as this one single person, as a product owner, need to be available for the whole team. The minute they ask a question, you need to be able to give them an answer, or at least make a decision, right? The moment you kind of like detach from the team, then you're going to have a problem. That's when they start to assume things. Then they assume, okay, actually it works like this, because you're not giving them answer, right? You always need to be available around the clock. So when you work with the freelancers who work late at night, like a part-time freelancers, then always expect this, right? Expect them to call you late at night to seek for an answer, right? Because email sometimes is too late, right? So always, establish this communication. Be that one person that people can rely to always provide clarity on the product. You may not have the answer yet. Like, I don't have answer to all the build Boleh Bayar question just now, right? And then you start to, okay, I'm just going to need to make a decision now. So just start making the decision. At least people can, follow someone, right? And this is the last thing. It's always about care. For us, when we build products, especially for startup, we really care about the product, right? Because let's say I want to build this, I want to spend my 50,000 or 5,000 ringgit on it. I need to be really, I need to really care about this product, right? I need to make sure that people that I work with really care about this product. They will come up with their own ideas, right? The more they come up with their own ideas, meaning they really care. Working with someone that really care, really, it's really easy to make a great stuff when you work with this type of people, right? I tend not to work with people who, just build what I told them to build, right? People who are not fighting back means for me, okay, sometimes it's just really quiet, but even if they have a something that irks them, then you just say it out, right? So work with people who actually ask a lot of questions, work with people who actually question your judgment, right? So then you actually build a better product, right? And that's about it. Yep. So that's my contact detail. We are like 15 minutes earlier.
Alright,
And ask question.
so now it's Q&A. It's good to see that a lot of people are participating just now, and also a lot of people are taking notes. So if you have any questions, just raise your hands. I'll bring the mic to you. All right.
I just want to ask a question about, you mentioned about half as product. I think I missed that point. Could you please explain more?
Right. So, yeah, when this is important, I don't mind repeating. So when we talk about when we're going to be a good editor just now, right? When we have actually, let's say we have 5 features to build, right? And we just want to launch our MVP. We could just focus on launching a very good 3 features and we just don't build the other 2, right? As opposed to, I'm just going to build all 5, but the other last 2 probably not going to work really well because we don't have time to actually figure it out, right? So if you can't actually build a good feature, actually a workable features, then don't build it, right? Let's try to just launch with, if you can actually make a good product with only 3 features, right? Then just launch with that, right? Don't build things that, hey, actually it's just once you get there, it's not really working, right? So I'm taking an example back then when internet was starting up and people building website. We always have this link that goes back to under construction. You probably don't want this, right? You want things that actually work, right? Or maybe there's a lot of, we cannot finish this feature, there's a lot of bug, but we're just going to release it anyway, then probably not right? So just focus on small things that you can deliver and you just deliver that. And more point on that, when we're working within a team, for example, we always focus on when you actually deliver a feature, it can actually be used, right? You don't deliver means like you give to the product owner, hey, go and test it out, right? When you are giving to the product owner, when you're giving to me this feature, I should be able to look at this and then, okay, it's good to use, right? If I accept it, there's no bug, it's good to use, right? We don't want to, okay, this feature works, but actually you need to style it, or actually the reporting is not ready, blah, blah. There's a lot of actually behind it, then you know it's not actually ready, right? So you just want things that work perfectly, even in a small step or just a small feature. So that's what we really means by a half product, right? Product with limited feature rather than half as product with complete features but not really workable or lousy UX, for example.
So if there's a lot of actuallys behind the process of designing the product, it's not actually ready.
Yeah, it's not actually ready, right? I mean, you can look at iPhone when they launch, right? There's a lot of things that's not there, but things that are there are actually really awesome, right? And Apple always does this, right? They always launch a half product when they are not really ready, as opposed to Android, you just have everything's there and doesn't really work, or you need to really think, right? A good, let's say, okay, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't want to have an Android and iOS fight.
Two questions here. First one is, say I have come up with a product. I already tested with all my friends, everyone that I know. So I push it out. Hello? Yeah, no response. No one subscribed to it. So how am I supposed to further investigate what's wrong? Whether it's the UI problem, whether no one really wants it, whether what, there could be 1,000 reasons. Should I give it up now, or how should I further? This first question.
Okay.
How do we know what's wrong? Second question is, you mentioned, like, I see that you have done SAYS and GroupMe, which is things that are done overseas. These 2 things. I mean, News Portal and Groupon. So this is an idea that is really proven in other markets, which most probably will work in Malaysia. So you are saying that the important things is execution. And at that time, you won from a sea of competitors, I don't know, maybe tens or whatever out there. So what is the important thing of executing? Do you keep a really good relationship with customers? Do you continue pushing tons of great features? What is this execution that you're talking about? What is good execution to you? So these two questions.
Right. So I'll answer the second question first, right? When we talk about execution, so what I learned throughout this process of launching products, right? The technicalities behind it is almost not important at all, right? Whatever product that you build, the technical, you know, the things that you need to build actually not that important. It's actually how you're actually putting out there and how you're providing value to people, right? When we actually launch Group Small, for examples, right? We are really focusing on doing things that work overseas, right? So we're not trying to be too smart about it. We just say, okay, Groupon work like this, then we're just going to work exactly like this. But the technical development, the all programming behind it is almost not important at all, because in the end, it's about how many merchants can you bring on board, right? And like what's are the real value actually you're pushing to people, right? It's always about that, right? Even when we build HShare, the social sharing network, right? The tech behind it is really simple, right? You just share something and people got paid, right? I mean, so many people has been doing this, right? But what a value that we're providing, we're making it easy for people to share, right? Because if you just share something, nobody probably want to click on it, right? But if you share something but you're telling a story before it, then the link kind of makes sense, right? Then people are going to start to actually click, right? So you're too keen on this, actually, what are the values that you're providing to the users, right? To really focus all out on providing this value in whatever means that's possible, right? I think this is always about that, right? You think about a customer, you care about them, and then you provide more. But that's the caveat to that, right? Because customers don't always know what they want, right? They would actually request a bunch of things. It's really up to you to actually decide, okay, these are things that necessary. If a request keep popping up, then after a while, you realize, okay, these are value that we can provide, then we're going to start building this, right? In the end, how are you going to achieve this? There's so many ways you're going to achieve that, but just focus on actually really providing value, even if the tech behind it is a bit lousy. From a tech perspective, right, I probably want to build a very elegant app, right? But does it really matter to the customer? Probably not so much, right? They just care about how can you help me, right? How you can make my life easier? What actually I'm getting from my app, right? So almost doesn't matter what are you doing on the back end, right? Even you have to do a very rudimentary like what we are proposing here, which is a bunch of interns working on the back end, doesn't matter to them, right? If you're providing value, then that's it, right? That's the most important thing. The first question is, if you already launched a product and nobody's downloading it, right? Then you're screwed. No, not really. Then that's probably a different problem, right? Then the problem probably like, then you're going to see like, what's your exposure to the market, right? Then probably it's a marketing problem. What are the messages you're putting out there, right? And this thing is easy to test, right? The easiest way to test this is just to run let's say a Facebook ad, right? With a certain type of message and another Facebook ad with a different type of message. Kind of like A/B testing your marketing message, right? That's probably the simplest way. There's so many other ways of doing this, but seems like if nobody's downloading, either there's a bug in the system and they cannot buy, or it's just a message that you are delivering is not correct, right? It's not so much about what are the product, what are you putting out there. Because if they are downloading and then uninstalling, then you know something wrong. You're not delivering, your product is not up to the expectation. But if nobody's downloading, then you know the message is wrong, because you cannot even get them to download, right? So, yeah, then I don't know, then you just need to talk to people, right? This is because if 100% uninstall, it's really about how can I get the information out, because they already uninstalled, right? How can we communicate to these people, right? Then you probably need a larger beta group to test, right? I'm sure there's a service out there that allows you to people to actually test, right? Or you could just go to a, sorry?
In the Play Store, there will be a feedback, right, from the customer.
The feedback, yeah. Looking at feedback, if people are actually giving a feedback or review, yeah, thanks, then that's it, right? But if everybody just uninstall and not saying anything, then I don't know, you're pretty much like, go talk to more people. The battery kot.
let's say you got a product, and then the product involves a lot of animations inside.
Sorry, what?
Animations.
Animations.
Like in terms of like functionality and stuff. So, do you work with a developer and an animator, or can a developer just execute all of it?
Animation as in like this is a game product kind of
No,
thing?
it's
or-
not like a. It's like the functionality. Let's say you click a button and some animation.
Right.
Yeah. So, developers, do they do that, or do you need an animator for that?
Well, the developers that I normally work with, let's say this is for mobile app. Let's say when we launch our own mobile app for sales and age share, right? What we have, I'm talking personal experience. I'm probably not sure what's the best way of doing this. So this is my personal experience on how we handle this, right? Our iOS developer is someone who's already good with UX and design, right? So he already come up with all the necessary animation that's supposed to happen. So we're gonna show, okay, this is gonna be like this, right? So he's gonna build it first, and then the Android developer just gonna copy it over, right? And see, okay, how this works, right? But this worked for us because the guy who built it know how to do animations, right? But chances are, maybe you have a developer that's don't really understand how to do this animation, right? Which is highly unlucky on iOS, because when you talk about iOS, there's a lot of like stock animations and stock ways on how things should happen, right? So I would expect that the developer could advise me on this, right? But that's another way of people doing things, is you have someone who's specifically a UX person who would come in and start talking to you, okay, this is how the flow is going to be, this is what you expect it to be, right? And developer figure it out, right? So then I would say, okay, maybe I would imagine like, because the flow on iOS, when you drag down, it's always refresh, right? And it's always a refresh animation. So the UX guy is going to say, okay, this is the flow. When you go to this page, there you should be able to drop down, you should see this, right? And the developer just need to figure out how to do it, right? So a UX guy is going to decide on what are the things that you can do. So if you don't have a UX guy, then probably when you start talking about this, when you start talking about mocks, for example, then you can start to specify, okay, here's our interactions on this page, right? When you click here, here's expectations. And I'm just gonna expect my developers to actually figure out how to do this, right? I don't expect there's another person to come in. So you're gonna have your mocks, and you figure it out, yeah.
Right.
Apa ni, Jai?
Yeah, never mind. I'll just be up. I'm pretty sure everyone here has their own commitments, and they have work, full-time job, and everything, and they want to start something. And you work with startups, different kind of startups. So I just want to ask, in your personal opinion, what type of people do you work closely with?
What type of people do I work closely with?
What is the number of people, the optimal number of people that it's best to work with? For example, my friend said that you need a hustler, a hacker, and I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But in your personal opinion, what type of people you should work closely with?
Well, that's actually quite true, right? You don't really need that many to actually start to launch a product, right? So that's what they normally say, like hipster, hacker, and hustler, right? So hustler is a visionary. So this is the guy who actually care about product, right? I've worked on the product that's only like 2%, right? Because the visionary is also a developer, right? And another guy is just a good designer, right? For me, things that really works well if I have a good front-end designer, someone who really understands a good design and a good UX, right? And one really good developer, and we pretty much like good, right? So the idea is probably another one is an idea person who actually have the vision of the product. But that's like, if the idea person is only one of these two, then you are pretty much good with that, right? And the ideal things I probably like, because if you work on a part-time basis, for example, then you don't want just a one person working on it. Then you want, let's say I have 2 developers and one good designers, for example. It's like the hustler part, I always normally could discount it out, because I believe that if these people actually care about the product, they're just going to hustle it themselves, right? If I really care about the product that I build, right, I'm just going to hustle it out and try to push it out there and sell. So the rest of people to make sales, for example, then you can get afterwards, right? the first group that actually build a really good product need to really care about the product, right? So hustler part, I normally like, no, not so much, right? Unless that's the guy who come in with the ideas, right? So maybe for me, like 2 developers and 1 good designers is a good combo, right? So at least you don't really like too tight. But even if like our front end, our iOS developer, right? He's really good with design, and then he'll learn iOS, right? He just launched a product by himself. Let's say 1%, right? And you could actually do this too, right? But ideally for me, if I have no technical skill, then I want 2 developers and 1 front end to actually launch product in a great pace, right? 1 developer probably not too fast.
So I'm going to talk back to the titles, which is the ideas itself.
Yep.
Okay. Now, from what I understanding from your slide is that, am I correct to say that to validate the idea, you just launch a product, which is what you're trying to communicate over here?
No, what I'm trying to communicate here, if you have ideas, here are your next step on how to launch it, right?
Okay, those are the steps.
Yeah, the validation part, you could come to the next talk after this, 2 p.m.
Because from the way you explain is that from a lot of questions over here is like, one missing point over here is there's no market research, data research, consumer demands, trends, on whether this idea is workable or not.
Yeah, that's not part of the
As
talk.
just now this gentleman says that your apps like no people install, right? Now if there's something wrong with your app that's no one install means right, there's no market demand. You need, in a way that the research must be done. I've seen many startups, I've seen even on my own companies, I was like, okay, we do a research on that over here, and we have proper steps doing the research before we launch an app. So that's one thing. Number 2 is, if your app's launched already, there's no people use and uninstall. When there's a people install means there's demand. When people uninstall it's because, right, you don't give people what they want. That's why they uninstall. Even Google data actually specified that 80% of the apps is in the market is uninstalled after first try. These are the data that you need to have even before you launch your product here.
Yeah, so this is true when there's a lot of things actually doesn't work, right? I mean, it's easy to look at app because you have actual data. Like when you talk about app on website, for example, that's even worse. Like there's so many things out there, it's not even funny, right? There's a lot of apps that have been built. In terms of, you say, a website, right? There's a bunch of websites out there, right? And still fine, right? It's easy to look at the numbers from App Store, for example, let's say 80% or whatever percent it is, right? But in reality, it's always like this, right? Even when we talk about business, a brick and mortar, there's so many people doing the same thing, right? And it's always going to be like this. It's always going to be like a bunch of apps that are useless. They're not really delivering your expectations, right? So that's why I don't really even care about so much of that, right? For me, it's really about, okay, what are the value that you are promising people, and just focus on about this, delivering this value, right? And really focus on yourself instead of thinking too much about others who are, you know, maybe you could learn from other people, but I don't care so much about competitors. I don't care so much about all the rest of the apps out there, right? I just really care, okay, this is the value that I'm proposing. I'm just going to push it out there. I really want to get you, deliver you this value, and manage your expectations on really getting it from my app, right? That's the way that I always look at things, right? When you talk about market research, for example, right? It's not part of this scope of the talk, but yeah, if you want to do market research, I mean, go ahead, right? There's so many things to do things.
It's a requirement because you're not going to spend like 5K, 10K, 20K to throw out something, and that's
yeah, certain things probably make sense to have a market research, right? Certain things, market research can only mean a lot of things. Let's say in lean startup, your market research is get out of the building, right? Just have some sort of ideas, go out there and talk to people and see who want to pay you. That could be also one part of market research. There's so many things trying to validate your ideas. Like I said, right, this is not talk about validating your ideas. This is talk about you having your ideas and actually how you're going to execute, right? Yeah.
All right, so maybe we can take one last question.
Oh, one last.
One last.
Can I do more?
More, yeah, more. Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Okay, one last question.
I don't want to put it inside the video, so.
In order to develop a decent, good-looking apps with a, I would say, decent UI, how long is
That's a very tough question to answer, because it could be, I mean, the numbers is like so, like, it can be one day, it could be like 5 days, it can be like many other days, right? Because because this is a very like high level questions, like, so you're questioning like how long it takes to actually build a good looking app.
Yeah, for example, e-store app.
I'm sorry?
E-store app.
E-store app, right? Yeah, because building the app involve, like, have you seen here, right? There's so many things that actually you need to do, like the features and the stories, right? To come up with a mock, then probably I could say, okay, some guy probably can come up with a mock-up of, you know, the screens of the apps probably in one day, or like the whole week. You can come up with 10 and another 2 variants of it, right? Maybe they can do something like that. But to actually build this is really depends on the features that we talk right now, right? Like how many things you're gonna build, and what actually we're gonna deliver out there, right? Always the right question is actually not how long it's gonna take, right? It's just about either you're gonna decide like when you're gonna launch this and start to work on what are the features that you need in, or you're gonna start building and then start to feel, okay, these are the features that we're gonna build and see how long it's gonna take, right? So it's not so much, I mean, the question probably not like how long it's gonna take to build this app. Straightforward, right? To answer this question, you need to do this process and figure out what actually you need to build, right? All the specifics out there, and start deciding on either a deadline or features that you want to deliver, and you work from there. Yeah. If you really need a deadline, you just give a deadline and make sure the features just work within that deadline. Meaning chances are probably you can't launch with all the things that you want, probably only 20% of it, right? Only 2 main features. Yeah. That's a tough estimation to make. I mean, if you just ask like how long it's gonna take. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Arzumy, round of applause.
Thanks.